Hello and welcome back. This is Elisa Ruffin with Leading Educators, and you are on the Grade 11 ELA Unit 6 video series. You are in the week 10 of lessons, and we're on lesson 48. So far this week, you've done some additional analysis of the text "The Man to Send Rain Clouds" by responding to reflection questions, writing alternate dialogue, reflecting on the use of craft and structure, specifically point of view and irony, and moved on to making connections between the text across all of Unit 6 to the unit theme and essential questions, engaging in some comparison and contrast of characters. Today, you're going to move on, continuing to make those connections between Unit 6 text and the overall unit theme, and doing some reflections on your learning. When you are done with the activities for today, remember that you need to share your learning with a family member, caregiver, or friend. Complete the weekly fluency activity using a page from the text, and do an additional 20 minutes of reading today from a text of your choice. We have arrived at the last riddle of the day. As you know, we've been doing a mashup of word association and picture decoding. 4 pics, 1 word. And you've been doing this now for an additional lessons, several lessons, I should say. Please make sure that you call those individuals who've been a part of this process the entire time that you've been enjoying doing these with to the screen, so that you can get in this last riddle of the day. And if you've been doing this and this is your final challenge, clear your mind and marvel at how quickly you're able to decode and solve this riddle. Are you ready? Here we go. This is the point where I will give you a hint. But since it's our last riddle, if you don't want one, press pause. Take the challenge. If you do want one, that's good too. And here it comes. It's an 8-letter word. 8-letter word that all 4 of these images have in common. Ready? Finished. Finished. Again, how ironic, right? I must have chosen that on purpose. So moving on so that we can get finished for today, let's make sure we have our resources. You need the Unit 6 text, note, and summaries, and you need your learning packet turned to Week 10, Lesson 48, and the note catcher. A pen or pencil and a smartphone or mobile device is optional if you'd like to access any of these texts digitally. A reminder of our essential question for the unit. What do stories reveal about the human condition? So we're going to talk about and remind you about that essential question as we reflect on and review all of the titles that you successfully unpacked and read throughout Unit 6. We started with Old Man at the Bridge by Ernest Hemingway, moved on to A Fast-Changing Society that focused on historical perspectives from 1950 to the present. Moved on to Everyday Use by Alice Walker. Then Everything Stuck to Him by Raymond Carver. Beyond that, we moved on to A Brief History of the Short Story, The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe, House Painting by Lon Samantha Chang, and finally wrapped up with The Man to Send Rain Clouds, our most recent story. In each of these texts, we address the question, what do stories reveal about the human condition? And so as we progress through Unit 6 and we think about the sum total of all of these unit texts, hopefully you're able to answer that question readily. Our learning target for Lesson 48, I can make connections between the text in Unit 6 and the essential question, guiding questions, and theme for the unit. Tall order, but you're prepared to do so. We started down this path in the previous lesson, and we're going to bring it to full completion today. Read, think, talk, write, close protocol routine we are going to continue with. You're going to read through all of your text summaries that you wrote for Unit 6. They will come in handy. And you're going to think about what do all the texts in Unit 6 collectively reveal about the human condition. So the big tackle of the essential question. And why is this unit titled Ordinary Lives, Extraordinary Tales? Okay, so it's the title of the unit now, not just the text. And you're going to think about why would those who created this assembly of text in your textbook entitle it Ordinary Lives, Extraordinary Tales. Then you're going to talk with a family member, caregiver, or friend about the following questions. Do you think the unit title reflects the story as well? Why or why not? And what title would you give this collection of stories, if not the one that already exists? Then you record your responses in the note catcher. In the right section today, you're going to complete the word network for Unit 6. And in closing, if this collection of texts were to be published in a single book, what would the cover look like? You're going to give the collection of Unit 6 texts a new title and design a book cover that best reflects the themes of the text, and then attach your design to the note catcher. We'll talk a little bit about how to approach those activities in our quick model for today. So let's start with our think section. You're going to answer the following question. What do all the texts in Unit 6 collectively reveal about the human condition? So what I can do to begin to respond to this question is based on all of my summaries, so I'm going to review those, and reflections, and I can also review those because they're my learning packet. I need to identify what the overarching message is, the sum total of messages that all of these texts send together. So we've gone through each individual text theme, but now you're going to think about all of those individual themes and consider what theme or message, singular, that all of these texts have in common for Unit 6. So as a collection, what do these texts reveal about the human condition? Then moving on to the next question, why is this unit titled Ordinary Lives, Extraordinary Tales? I have to use and need to use the same thinking I applied when I came up with alternate titles to the few stories that you had to do that for in Unit 6. So if you go back to those stories and texts where you had to come up with a new title, there is a process, remember, that we went through of how you can brainstorm some titles and where texts typically retrieve or get their titles from or what they're inspired by. All right, so think about how that could have been one of those strategies could have been a source of inspiration for those who assembled this collection of stories and gave it this title. And then you come up with your response, okay? Also think about the contrast of terms, ordinary and extraordinary. What does ordinary mean? What does extraordinary mean? And why are they used in contrast to one another? And then this idea of lives and tales, right? So think about what lives mean in this context and what tales are. If you do that, you'll be more than prepared to respond to that second question. In the right section today, you are going to use your notes and summaries from the Unit 6 text to complete the word network, okay? And so the tie that binds all of these words together, so this goes back to this idea or practice with 4 picks 1 word, right? So the big idea is the human condition. And we've talked about what that means, right? So you know the human condition are the kind of experiences, relationships, emotions, thoughts, all human beings experience. And you've responded to that question for every single text for Unit 6. And so you may actually have some one-word brainstorms from previous lessons in your learning packet, some explanations and reflections, responses, etc. that explain for each text what aspect of the human condition that particular text is related to. You've also identified the theme for each text in Unit 6, so you can go back to those responses as a starting point too. And you have explained the connection of each text theme to the essential question for the unit. So you find the part in each lesson series where you have identified the theme and you've connected that theme to the essential question for the text. And then based on the verbiage that you put around it, the words that you used or the phrase that you came up with in your response, and you're going to put that in the word network, okay? So my response to those questions for each text contain information that can be reduced to a word. So let's say you have a 2 to 3 sentence response that you crafted to answer the question of the connection between the essential question and the theme of a particular text. You're going to take that sentence and work backwards and see if you can reduce that sentence to a word or a phrase, a single word or a phrase. So you may have had 2 or 3 sentences of writing to respond to that question for each text. Instead, look at those 2 to 3 sentences and see if you can summarize it in one word, one idea. And when you come up with that one word or one idea for each text, you're going to put it in your vocabulary word network. And it's going to show you how each text connects to the human condition visually. To close, I want you to do some creative thinking here. You've engaged in this type of work before for previous texts. And you're going to think about if this collection of texts were to be published in a single book. This should remind you of the history of the short story, a brief history of the short story, where we talked about the origins of the short story, where this idea of gift books, that people would give away a collection of short stories as gifts to people. So if this Unit 6 collection of stories were to be a gift book, right, a reimagined gift book in modern day, what would the cover of that book look like? And what would you decide to give the title to that book? All right, what would you make that title be? All right, so you can use the same process that you used when you've crafted other titles or come up with alternative titles for different texts. You can draw your inspiration from themes. You can draw your inspiration from messages, from symbols, from characters in the story, from a line or dialogue in the story. You let your imagination run free with that, but make sure that it's influenced by or captures the essence of what Unit 6 represents. Okay, and when you design the cover, you can do that by hand. You can draw, you can paint, you can also use clip art, imagery, whatever it is that will help you put the vision in your head on the page. Use that and then get really creative with that title. Okay, so that is your closing activity for today. And keep in mind that your answers from the Think and Write section for today are also really good places to start brainstorming words and symbols, because those two activities for today already have you making connections. And once you've made those connections and reduced things down to one word, it'll better help you and position you to come up with some symbols that may inspire some artwork for you for your book cover and also a title. All right, so now it is your turn to read, think, talk, write. You're going to be reading all the text summaries you wrote for Unit 6 and some of your reflection and responses as I've quick modeled for you. You're going to think about what do all the texts in Unit 6 collectively reveal about the human condition and why this unit is titled Ordinary Lives, Extraordinary Tales. You're going to talk with a family member, caregiver, or friend about whether or not you think the title of the unit reflects the stories well, why or why not, and think about, like I said, what title you would give that a collection of stories, which comes up again in the closed section. And then you're going to complete the word network for Unit 6 in the note catcher, kind of boiling down or reducing down some of your reflection responses from previous texts about the human condition and the connection to the theme for the unit to one word or one phrase that could be contained in that note catcher vocabulary word network that shows you visually how each text connects to the human condition. And then you're closing today with a cover art project where you imagine what it would look like to design a book cover to contain the Unit 6 stories and also coming up with a new title. So I hope you really enjoy being creative in that regard and wrapping up your learning in this way. If you have any additional questions, you can pause and replay this video as many times as you like, as always, for help. And if you get stuck, you can email a teacher for support using the structure below. When you are done with all of the activities for today's lesson, share your learning with a family member, caregiver, or friend, especially your book cover design and your new title, because you've been sharing your learning all along the way. And this is a wrap-up activity. I really do think they'd be interested to see how you've chosen to imagine and visualize the themes in one image and title. Complete the weekly fluency activity using a page from the text and do an additional 20 minutes of reading from a text of your choice. So we've reached the end of not just today's lesson, but we have reached the end of Unit 6. You have done some amazing work. You've grown a lot. You have continued to bolster and grow in your ability to critically think about text, to unpack them, to examine them, to analyze them. Your abilities as a writer have continued to improve as you've examined the techniques, the author's craft and structure of the text that we've read through, and you have applied that learning to create some of your own masterpieces. And keep in mind that moving forward in any other text that you encounter, you can use these same skills and apply them there, and they will take you far. Enjoy these wrap-up activities as you reflect on Unit 6 and its overall connections, and good luck on these activities. Thank you for your commitment and your hard work, It has been an honor and a privilege to guide you through Unit 6. Goodbye.